Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another fine Wednesday morning here in the city of Philadelphia. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns. I'm doing a little multitasking here, running a little late. Stayed up late to watch election results. Quite a fascinating night for those who are wonky like me and really like to look at what's going on. Um, Quite a fascinating night for everyone. Surprising night for a lot of the talking heads, folks that analyze stuff, think about stuff, look at elections from a ostensibly an objective standpoint. It's never really objective, but that's what they claim to do. Um, Anyway, a lot of folks in that arena were surprised by the results. I didn't find the results too surprising, except for the 500,000 people, the half a million people who thought that splitting the ticket between a Democrat for governor, Josh Shapiro, and a Republican for our state senator, federal senator for our state, in Mehmet Oz, was a good idea. I don't quite understand why that would be any sort of a good idea. Um, I'm lost on that one. I've gotten a lot of commentary on Facebook this morning about what could lead to that. I don't know that any of us can capture it in full. There's a lot of things that go into a decision like that, I would suppose, or sometimes there's nothing that goes into a decision like that, and it's just feelings. So great, yeah. Anyway, we're gonna. I would like to take a moment and recognize that it is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. I had a grandfather who recently passed away, who was suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, and the thing that I'd like to say, in Alzheimer's Awareness Month here is that Alzheimer's is a disease that affects a lot of people. It isn't something that you would necessarily be able to do anything to prevent, or that in our medical research about Alzheimer's, we haven't found any methodology for cures. There's even questions now with the latest research that we've even found the method of action that causes Alzheimer's. Um, so there's a lot of research still to be done. If you care about somebody who has Alzheimer's, or if you just care about your fellow people, and you'd like to make sure that Alzheimer's gets researched well, I suggest that you donate to an Alzheimer's research nonprofit. That would be a lovely thing to do. And also, donate to folks who are doing research into medical discrepancies by gender, age, and race of medical outcomes. Because my grandfather is a black man. He was in his 90s, and you know, the things that killed him might not necessarily have been the diseases he was suffering, but more that people in their 90s, especially black people or other people of minority description, whether that be Asian or other ethnicity, or whether that be LGBTQ, or whether that be anything, transgender, people have difficulty when they're of minority description having their medical opinions about their own body recognized and followed. So it's important that that we research and understand more about how best to have doctors and patients interact so that people can have their right to privacy and have their right to their own bodily autonomy and get things done in a manner that they agree with. That's what I wanted to say about that. My grandfather was a really interesting man. He taught us to be aware of our surroundings, aware of the place and time we live in. He's quite an inspiration for this show, and I do miss him dearly, and I hope that I can carry on, some part of his memory by continuing to do things like this. On that somber note, I'm going to bring on our special guest for the day. These folks are from Bridge Players Theater Company. They have a show coming up called The Fantasticks. Welcome on screen, Marissa, Terry, Lindsay, and Jesse. You guys can unmute yourselves. I can control that from here, and then we can chat. If you would introduce yourselves, your pronouns, what it is you do. I have you laid out on screen just like you are on the Zoom here. So, Marissa, we can start with you.
Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm a cast member in the show. She, her.
Great. And Terry.
Hi, I am Terry McIntyre, pronouns she, her. I am the fight director.
Oh, great. And Lindsay.
Lindsay Kilchesty, she, her. I am the producer.
Great. And Jesse.
Hi, I'm Jessie Mizell. My pronouns are they, them. I am the assistant director and choreographer, and I'm actually the artistic director of Bridge Players as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Sorry for the slightly late start. Like I said, staying up for election results has its consequences, I guess. So tell me about the show that you have coming up, The Fantasticks. I'll let you start, Jesse.
Okay.
And so the format here is relatively loose. Anybody can jump in at any time. I don't mind people talking over each other. Feel free to jump in.
So The Fantasticks still remains the longest running production of really any kind in history. It ran for 42 years off Broadway. It included some really famous actors like, Orbach, and I know Santina Fontana was in the revival. Tickets are $20 and they are for sale at bridgeplayerstheater.com/tickets. You can learn more there and how to purchase tickets and everything. And as far as our dates, it's November 10th through the 13th, and we're at the Lyceum Hall Center for the Arts in Burlington. It's been a really fun experience as somebody who didn't really know a whole lot about the show when I was asked to be brought on. I'm finding new meaning in each of the characters. And I think in different stages of life, you continue to find new meaning within the show. So it's been a really awesome experience, and we have some really amazing talent on the stage.
Awesome. Anybody want to tell me just a little quick thing? What is The Fantasticks about?
Kind of a classic love story. Boy and girl fall in love. Conflict. Boy and girl are apart, and you'll have to come see it to see how it turns out.
Awesome. Any particular things in fight choreography that you want to highlight for The Fantastics? Anything that audiences should look for or really be drawn to?
That's a really interesting question. And I'm trying to think of a way to answer that without giving too much away. Because like Marissa said, there's part of the conflict is a big part of the story. Once conflict gets introduced to any kind of story, drama is conflict. That's kind of a catalyst for a lot of stories that we see, whether it's a romance or drama or comedy even sometimes. So enough waxing existential anyway.
That's fine.
Yeah. So there's a couple of little fight scenes. They really do fuel the story being told and why those fights happen. Um, Kind of tell us a lot about where different characters are in their own journey. I know the boy in the story that Marissa mentioned, he's learning a lot about himself, and the one of the characters, El Gallo, kind of helps him learn a bit about himself in various ways. Um, yeah, I think that's all I can really say without giving too much away.
No worries.
Yeah.
So, any other little tidbits, any other little um, thoughts? What would you say is the relevance to modern audiences, current audiences, of this piece? You said it's been running consecutively for a very long time. What's the relevance, that brings it to modern audiences? Why should people come see it?
I mean, I feel like people should come see it because it's a classic love story, but it also in some ways allows for you to learn what love is or what love could be, um, through conflict, through all the fighting, through all of the crazy songs that do happen. It's just a lovely way to connect in both friendship, love, and family. Um, and I think it's relevant even whether you're young or older because you'll find little things to kind of focus on. I feel like to resonate within your own lives because it is in some ways you know there's this overarching theme of just of love in whether again friendship, actual relationship love, or even just family love.
Yeah. I think I was actually having a conversation with my partner the other day, my boyfriend the other day, and he did not know really anything about the story, and we got a chance. There was actually a movie version back in like the mid 90s. Um, did not have critical acclaim. The budget was quite low. Um, but after I learned that it was one of the longest running shows ever, I was like, okay, I'm curious. Here's this DVD in the $5 bin at Walmart. Cool, I'll check it out. And I've been kind of curious about it ever since because it starts out giving us we all as we're growing up we have this idealized idea of love and of what the world is supposed to be through stories, through movies, through things like that, like, oh, it's going to be romantic and the moonlight and all this kind of stuff. And as we experience the world and as we experience conflict and we grow a little bit, we start to understand how much pain and loss and conflict really is a part of that growth process, and understanding really what love is supposed to be more than just in movies and TV and books and things like that. Marissa can probably speak to this a bit more playing that character, but Louisa is a very big fan of things like Romeo and Juliet and looking and gazing into the stars in your eyes and the moonlight.
Very
Um,
dreamy, and I think I described her as dreamy and starry-eyed, pretty dramatic. I mean, she's 16. Yeah, but like Terry said, she's a very idealized notion of love from she says she reads all the romances, all the adventures with all the swashbuckling and damsels in distress and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where she gets her idea of love, and which kind of changes as the story goes on.
yeah.
Awesome. Conflict, love, a love story, fighting a little bit. I mean that's the elements of any classic story, I suppose. You go ahead.
And to clarify those fights, sword fights. If you want to
Sword
come see awesome
fights.
sword fights. Yeah.
Lindsay,
What's
you
more
had
exciting than a sword fight?
Lindsay, you had a thought.
No, I was just agreeing with Terry.
Yeah, sword fights are always awesome. I'm a big fan of sword fights. I'm also a big fan of, swashbuckling in general. So bringing a little bit of the swashbuckling that the character is reading into the narrative of the play.
We get very Errol Flynn.
Awesome. So, transitioning a little bit to politics, because that's like kind of the big topic of the day. Just wanted to say, you know, I get heated, I get upset, I get a little bit loud when things happen that I can't quite grasp. I titled today's show a little bit provocatively, 500,000 Morons. But I really can't like grok the idea of splitting a ticket like that between somebody who doesn't even live in the state versus and then on the other hand clearly identifying the fact that Doug Mastriano would have been possibly the worst decision for governor ever. I said it a couple of times before the election. Doug Mastriano, even should it be close, and it wasn't really close. I mean, it was closer than I would like. I would have liked to have seen like a 60-40 split instead of a 40-something split. But I guess that's asking too much. But, I mean the fact that it was as close as it is does mean that some of the rhetoric out there is actually working, and that's problematic. The rhetoric around the election is not what the election should be about, and it's very problematic that really the Trumpian party, not even the Republican Party, but the Trumpians out there have kind of taken politics to this place where it's just about the narrative. It's about what they want to sell you. Roe v. Wade isn't really about Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is about the right to privacy. It's about the right to choose what you do with your own self. Like it affects all of us. It affects us whether we're of childbearing age, uterus having human beings, or if we're just some random Joe who wants to go fishing tomorrow. It happens to be one of the most important topics in politics over the last 100 years or so. And if voters are sensitive enough to identify that, how can they be not sensitive enough to, at the same time, in that large of a number, really like 500,000 votes can swing an election very easily in a state the size of Pennsylvania? How can they not be sensitive enough to understand that, Dr. Oz is a TV doctor, and yeah, he was a surgeon, but he makes all of his money through, promoting diet pills now.
Well, we got a president at one point who he was just a celebrity. They managed to believe all of the lies, and this doctor was also supported by that former president. So I feel like it's a lot of the same kind of people who believe that same kind of rhetoric that ended up going in that direction. The theory that I kind of have, the fact that it got split so much, I'm wondering how much of that is because for the governor level, that's a bit more closer to home. That's local. That's something that some people may immediately connect to. Okay, this is going to affect me directly. Whereas, like, a lot of us have become very disconnected or whatever with the federal level. Like, we don't see how that's going to directly affect us.
So there's this narrative that Elon Musk. I hate to quote Elon Musk because he's one of these morons. But Elon Musk tweeted the other day, and this is a deep topic. It goes directly against everything that, like, the whole idea of Twitter being a marketplace of ideas, a town square, so to speak, for the owner of that town square to then tweet out political opinions in the hours before the election is just, it clearly shows he's not talking about himself when he's talking about Twitter. Anyway, so he tweeted out that, if people were smart, if they were considering voting for Democratic senators, they should vote for Republican governors and vice versa, because the only thing that limits the excesses of one party is the pushback of another party. Aside from this being a middle schooler's understanding of how government works, do people actually believe this? Like, is this something that any of you has encountered in the world? Like, does this work for other people? Like, does this narrative work?
Well, I guess I could see why people would think that, but so I've lived in Bucks County since 2015. I'm originally from South Jersey. This election has been strange. I actually have a neighbor on my street who had a sign for the Democratic state Senate candidate, which I was very confused because they had a Trump flag, 2 years ago. And then they had a Dr. Oz sign right next to it. And it kind of boggled my mind, and I'm still very confused about it. But I think a lot of it, well, at least some of it, especially after the debate between Fetterman and Oz, which unfortunately I had to go see clips after because rehearsal. But people were a little skeptical because of his, he's still healing from his stroke. And I think a lot of it is rooted in a little bit of ableism, because they think, oh, if he can't talk, then how can he, represent us? But talking and having good ideas are different things.
No, I mean, I
don't think I phrased that right, but
no, I think you're accurate there. I think talking and good ideas are two different things. I've, since the beginning of starting this show, my partner has always, her biggest criticism of me as a host is that I pause a lot when I'm talking. If you listen to me, I'm not a very polished host. I'm not I say a lot. I stumble over my words and thoughts. I think a lot. I'm thinking while you're talking. I'm thinking while I'm talking. That's to me, that's always been the hallmark of somebody who is actually able to represent a lot of people, because if you can think, even if you're thinking so much that it's causing you to stumble across words, then this is in no way to aggrandize myself, but when I see that trait in other people, I think, oh, okay, well then you're probably trying to put your thoughts into their frame of reference.
Yeah, I tend to stutter a lot. I'm surprised I'm not stuttering more right now, public speaking. Don't do it on stage with lines, but being myself, yeah, lots of stuttering.
Yeah, I mean, and making screwing up phrases like saying good night when you start a speech at night. I could totally see myself doing that. Fetterman isn't a public speaker. He's never been known for his oratory. He's never been known for, like, he's not one of those guys that, can just plop down a 7 years ago. It's not something that he does. He's the guy that is representative of, blue collar sensibility. Even though he's not blue collar himself, he's representative of that because it's the environment he grew up in. I'm fine with that as a candidate. Like, I'm fine with somebody stuttering over words or taking longer to process things. As I said in previous broadcasts, the audience can't see it, but I have the transcript of everything that we're saying up on screen because I need it. I need it, to just, like, sometimes we'll go through things and I'll, like, lose track and I'll be like, oh, it's right there. I can read it. And then, I'll seem distracted for a minute. I'll seem like I'm zoning out. It's not that I am zoning out, it's that I'm trying to catch up. So yeah, no, but yeah, I've said it before. I'll probably say it a million more times. I think that's the wildest narrative to me to come out of this whole entire election process, especially when you've got on the other side of that narrative, you've got a doctor, a surgeon supposedly, who should understand what it is to deal with people, like what it's like for people who are experiencing any sort of medical recovery, is taxing.
Yeah, the attack ads kind of, I mean, I don't like who likes political commercials really, but the attack ads about, his speaking at the debate especially just pissed me off so much.
Yeah, the political ads, the attack ads this year just freaking drove me up the wall. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I don't care. I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, if your whole political campaign is just almost nothing but fear-mongering attack ads, then I'm not going to listen to you. Like, I want to actually know what you were going to do, not this general kind of, because I saw a bunch of Oz ads as well saying like, oh, I'm going to represent you. I believe in truth. I believe in justice. Okay, those are all really great ideas, but those are very general. What specifically
he didn't say
are
anything.
Exactly. But the problem is he was saying it so charismatically, and enough fear mongering puts more of the attention on you. He is a celebrity. He knows how to spin a narrative, especially because he was so used to doing that on his TV show that he was able to get enough people's attention, and it sucks. I think that's how Cheetah Mussolini also got his stuff too. Sorry. But yeah. Like, sorry, I very much love Stephen Colbert because, like, he no longer says that name. He actually has his viewers come up with various names, and he'll just every day use a different name that they suggest on Twitter.
I don't know if he's used mine. Mine is Donnie Douche Canoe, but
I love it.
Awesome.
It's just it's. I don't know. This topic came up earlier today on one of my posts as well. The idea of there's a lot of people who still, I don't know if it's for better or for worse. Quite literally, don't know whether it's for better or for worse. Believe in kind of the system. They believe in, holding people to their campaign promises, for instance. So this is the actual thing that came up that I'd like to dive into. A person that I have on my friends list is, he's very centrist. Actually, he's just very pro-black. So both of the major political parties in the United States have done horribly by in the efforts to represent black people and black culture. It's just not even a question. If you're a black person in the United States, you understand that, like, neither of these parties really represents your best interest. and that's fine. To be kind of questioning of the motives of the people that promote one party or another. Uh, but he made a very salient point. What's next? Okay, so the election has happened. There have been Democrats, not exactly a blue wave, not exactly a red wave. The Democrats picked up one seat in the Senate, possibly two. There are races that haven't been decided yet. They may have a one-seat majority in the House remaining. They did lose a couple of seats in the House, but they may end up with a one-seat majority in the House. Hopefully, because Lauren Boebert, yeah,
Herbert.
she's losing her seat. Hopefully, it's a close race there, but at least it's leaning the direction of Lauren losing her House seat, the least effective of the. Well, perhaps not the. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably the least effective House representative, but she doesn't even have any offices in her district. It's a long story, but yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so it's not exactly like a big win for either party. But his question was, now what? Do all the activists who were pushing for a candidate hold them to their campaign promises? And my response was, were there campaign promises? Like, did anybody notice any campaign promises? I got lost in the fight. I may have missed something. Go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Like, I didn't, as far as Boebert and Taylor Greene, like all I really heard was, we're gonna make America, like the classic, the freaking MAGA line. Like, that's all I really heard from them. So what the heck does that mean?
Yeah, what does that? Yeah, what is the actual campaign promise there? How do you hold somebody to this kind of ethereal?
Yeah.
Let's make America great again. There were some good things that came out of the election, though, I think. I mean, aside from Mastriano losing, so did Carrie Lake, excuse me. Carrie Lake lost. A lot of the hand-picked Trumpian candidates lost bigly. So that was kind of great, but there is also a lot of firsts. Summer Lee, elected first black woman elected to Congress from Pennsylvania. Avron Venkat, first Indian American elected to the Pennsylvania legislature. Latasha Mays, first openly black lesbian elected to the Pennsylvania legislature. Austin Davis, first black lieutenant governor. And all of those were WPA supported candidates. The Working Families Party seems to be doing a lot of good work in identifying actually good candidates versus just kind of what was the narrative during the lead up to the 2016 campaign? It's her turn, or it's his turn, versus whose turn it is to run. WPA seems to be doing a good job of identifying actual. Oh, hey, this person would actually be a good candidate.
Right.
I mean, have you guys seen who if I don't know how politically active y'all are, but like who have you seen that you would say is like a great up and coming candidate?
Oh jeez.
Oh jeez.
Oh jeez. I feel like I should have done more research.
Oh no, it's not a research thing. Anybody that comes to mind would be great. Like if you have anybody, like for instance, the young woman out of Texas. I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, but she does. She was called out by the AG of Texas, and then translated that into a lot of fundraising for.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah. Yeah, she was an activist on Twitter, I think.
Mhm.
And then I think Ted Cruz or something like that, like criticized her weight.
Yes.
And
Well,
so
the
she
AG.
oh, thank you. Yeah. And then she ended up turning that into fundraising for what was it, trans rights? Or
First she
abortion?
did abortion, and then she did trans rights. For some reason, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, can't seem to leave this one alone, and neither can any of the other Republicans in Texas. They can't seem to leave her alone long enough to not assist her in raising lots and lots of money.
I think I saw Matt Gaetz also tried to call her out, and she was like, "Matt, I'm a little too old for you." So, yeah.
Oh, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Five Fingers Heads. Olivia Juliana is her name. And
Yes. Oh, I follow her on Twitter. Yeah.
yeah. Isn't Matt Gaetz also the one that ran? No, Matt Gaetz isn't the one that ran. Who was it that ran from the insurrection?
Oh my God, I see his face.
Yeah, I see his face.
Is it the guy that had his, like, at the beginning of things, had his fist up
Yeah.
to the protesters?
Yeah.
I could see his face in my head. Budge.
Literally Googling.
Yeah.
Josh Hawley.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I had to
Holly.
Google it.
These guys are. I mean, yeah, I googled it too. These guys, it's fascinating just to watch. You know, like. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's interesting to see representation in elections. I think it's great that we're getting a more diverse representation in government. I definitely always appreciate seeing people like me in positions of power, but it's just, is that what causes people to push back against this so hard? So like a lot of the narrative from the talking heads is that there was going to be this big red wave. The big red wave was going to be a pushback against wokeism. I hate that terminology because it's not a thing, but anyway, and for the viewers, wokeism in this particular case meaning just being fucking civil to everyone else. I'm lost when it comes to like people's anti-wokeism. Like, how hard is it? Sure, I make lots of mistakes. I had hangups that have changed over time. I've not wanted to associate with people that are different than me from time to time. It happens. And then you get over it. Like, I don't know what's the big deal with calling people by their preferred pronouns. I call people by their preferred name all the time. If you're introduced to somebody or somebody introduces themselves to you, and they say their name is Billy Bob, and they look like Gene Simmons, you're still going to call him Billy Bob. That's the only name they're going to answer to.
Yeah.
It's just common decency, and that's what I feel like is in some ways lacking with a lot of people, it's common decency.
But I would say, counter to that, just to counter that for a moment, that a lot of the people that push back the most against this kind of thing are the people that would consider themselves the most courteous and most commonly decent. and having the most common sense. I love common sense because it's neither common nor sense. But yeah, having this kind of look into what other people, like a lot of the folks that follow in this line kind of think that they are arbiters of what everyone else should do. And I don't, so, that, just to push back on it, like what
It's like people who think that, you know, this idea that they've had their whole life, they were taught this, it stays this no matter what, versus people who adapt with changing facts and changing conditions and can do that. I think it's a sign of at least emotional intelligence, if nothing else, that you can adapt your thoughts and ideas and feelings to changing facts of the world that literally will not change with whatever you.
And a lot of the times the people that are going to be the ones that say, well, I'm a nice person, I don't mean any harm by it, I'm sorry, but people that say that they're the nice people are the biggest assholes you will ever meet. If you have to, preface with a disclaimer of you are a nice person, you are probably not.
it's
a nice person.
I'm not a racist of
Exactly.
I think some of it. Go ahead, Lindsay. Sorry.
No, it's just that whole, you have to be loud about it to make it seem valid and right, and it's usually wrong and misleading and misguided, and just people suck.
Yeah. I think from thinking from a psychology kind of perspective about it, like the people that say that they're the nicest and they proclaim that they are the kindest and they do the most with the world, the Christians, they're very Christian. The moment that they are challenged in any way, shape, or form, that they're not doing everything to be the nicest to the people, actually nice to the people around them, that's challenging their own self-image. That's challenging that's there's a what's the word I'm looking for? There's a cognitive dissonance that starts to happen because that makes them have to actually look inward and analyze, wait, am I actually nice? Because they've grown up knowing that, oh, if I do this, then that means I'm nice. If I do this, then that means I'm nice. But the moment they're asked to change any of their behavior, if they're challenged on their behavior, that starts to challenge what they think of themselves. And they haven't had that before, I think, for a lot of them. So that's not saying they shouldn't be challenged, because freaking challenge the crap out of them, excuse my language. But because I just had a Captain America moment. Anyways, but yeah, like I think for a lot of them, it's just the fact that they've never really been challenged on their own self-image before like that.
An interesting result. I agree with all of that, and I don't think I'm just gonna rough segue. I apologize for the bad segue. Interesting result of last night. There was a blue wave in Michigan. Michigan flipped their Senate seat, maintained their Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer, even though she's been under fire from the kind of extremists in her state. And their state legislature completely flipped to Democratic control for the first time since 1983, and even in 1983, it was only under Democratic control for a couple of months. So Michigan is now firmly in Democratic control in all three branches of the Michigan government. The legislature, the judiciary recently had a lot of Democrat nominations. Even though judiciary isn't supposed to be political, it is anymore. So we'll just we'll just accept it. There's only so many things I can fight at once. So I think over the next few days, you're going to see a lot of analyzation of why Michigan flipped. And I think you're going to see a lot of narratives build around this. Were there too many Trumpian candidates? Were the actions of um, the extremists in Michigan too beyond the pale even for the regular voter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think this we can Occam's razor this and find the simplest solution, which is Michigan was redistricted by a nonpartisan panel last year, and the new districts were. This is the first election where the new districts took effect, and so there are no gerrymandered districts. They're all just equally divided, right?
Every state should do that.
Every state should do that. I don't understand why this is. Why do why do elected officials get to choose who they represent rather than just needing to represent the people that elected them?
Yeah, a bit of a conflict of interest there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, of course, is still in the middle of a redistricting battle. The state Supreme Court is mostly conservative. And the state legislature has always been in the hands of the Republican Party, where the governor has been in the hands of the Democratic Party for, I don't know, where are we going back? Like 10 years now, 15 years? I forget. And we've tried redistricting. And one side or the other ends up getting it thrown out by the court. I don't know. It's very frustrating.
The thing that's frustrated me about Pennsylvania is the whole mail-in ballot thing. How they were screaming, the Republicans decided these ballots can only be counted starting at a certain time. And then people were screaming that, oh, they're still counting them after election day. No, you need to stop. Well, you made this rule. You need to continue with it. It just, that whole drama frustrated me. If I've mailed in my last 2 ballots, you're telling me you don't want to count my vote, even though I did it correctly, on time, legally? I don't think so.
Well, one of the big things with Pennsylvania ballots is the recent rulings. The court cases are far from over, but the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did overrule a district court in saying that the date that you put on your mail-in ballot is required. This is a bit of wonky minutia, but it affects everyone. It's wonky and minutia because the arguments for either side of it are pretty interesting. The argument on the side that the date is important is that the law around mail-in ballots as written requires a date. The argument that the date isn't important is that the law, even though it requires a date, does not say it needs to be today's date or any particular date. And it doesn't say that the date is, that you have to fill out the ballot. So because you can fill in the mail-in ballot anytime after you receive it up until the election day. So you could put any date on there. It doesn't matter what the date is, but the ruling made the date important and said that it had to be a reasonable date. So if you get the wrong year on your date, you've just invalidated your own ballot. If you get to put the date on, you've invalidated your own ballot. I don't know. I don't think that doesn't. It doesn't make sense to me. Maybe just because I kind of see things from a liberal standpoint most of the time. But fairness in elections would say to me, well, if this date doesn't matter what it is, then why does anybody ever have to fill it out? What does it matter?
As long as it's the right ballot. Obviously, I didn't get this a year ago if I accidentally put 2021 on it.
Right.
Yeah. And if I remember right, like I know with the 2020, if I remember a lot of the news reports about dead people voting or fake ballots, most of those ended up being for Trump in the first place anyway.
Yeah, no, a lot of
Yeah.
the discovered election fraud was definitely on the Republican side, but that narrative doesn't carry over in the public sphere to the conservative, wingnut
Yeah.
websites. You go on Truth Social, everybody's still talking about election fraud, but it's
Yeah.
not about election fraud that they're committing. It's about election fraud in general.
Right.
Oh, we might have immigrants voting. No, first of all, you don't, but second of all, no.
Shows you how little they actually know about the way elections run.
Right.
Yeah.
Relatively good news in the Pennsylvania House race. On track for flipping three contested districts are Democrats. So the Pennsylvania House may end up in the hands of Democratic electeds for the first time in a long time. How long has PA legislature been Republican? I don't know. Party of ballots at PBU. That's probably good. Whew. 1992. Okay, so the Senate has been in Republican hands since 1994. The House flipped for 4 years, 07 to 10. And the governorship has always flipped back and forth. Every term, basically. So, interesting. But yep.
I just Googled because I couldn't find it last night. The Democratic challenger for my district in Pennsylvania narrowly defeated the Republican incumbent by 400 votes.
So
Awesome.
that's going to be a long
Jeez.
confirmation. They're going to recount
Yeah.
that
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
probably.
for a while.
Yeah.
That's also an interesting result of last night. Herschel Walker versus Warnock.
Yep.
Less than it's less than 5% of the total vote count. If less than 5% of the total vote count separates them, or if no candidate gets more than 50 total percent of the vote, it's an automatic runoff. It's not even a recount, it's a runoff. So probably not going to know who's representing Georgia until late December. And that's going to be interesting.
I was actually working as a vote reporter last night for a company. Not necessarily a counter, but like as votes came in, reporting them up to like a company that then reports them out to different news companies. And in the media room that I was in, I remember hearing a lot of people talking about like just things that will extend certain counts. Some counties in South Jersey where like the vote count, they had to issue a ton of provisional ballots because they forgot to turn the voting machines to daylight savings or something like that, or like do the time change. So it was all messed up.
So actually that happened in our district over here yesterday morning. A lot of family members who live around me were like, go and leave yourself enough time to get over there because you have to write out a provisional ballot. By the time I got there, the machines were up and running, but that actually happened here.
Yeah. And so like I'm surprised there's not any more reporting, at least in Jersey, of like different delays in vote counts, like certain things gonna have to take a couple of weeks just to get to.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all settles out. I know that Republican, especially activists, are going to be saying, "Oh, something's wrong." Like, why don't we know the results of these elections? Well, you did too good of a job. All right, you didn't undersell your candidates quite enough, and they came too close to winning. Therefore, yeah, these randos that you picked, um, yeah, it's just is it Bachman? Michelle Bachman was on a broadcast last night, and she started bringing up the what is going to be what has to be is the only narrative that they have is going to be the narrative that Republican think tanks are going to push, which is, there was something wrong. Why were these races so close? Why wasn't it a red wave? Um, and you're going to see op-eds in like the New York Times of, oh, even though Democrats won, here's what it being so close shows that the Democratic Party is in disarray, blah, blah, blah. It's These are the narratives that they try and sell us that I'm just fascinated by. I don't understand why this is what politics has become. Like, we have stuff that's important to talk about.
Catastrophizing sells papers.
Mm.
Like, making it worst case scenario makes people want to listen. Like, oh, the Democratic Party is in disarray. Well, okay, disarray is a word that people are going to pay attention to.
Maybe that's why I'm not so popular. I don't go for I don't go for the disaster angle.
Yeah. Like, so much of the media coverage surrounding elections, and just our elections in general, like the fact that we got so tired of the fear mongering commercials with Fetterman and Oz, and I don't know, like on some of the Jersey races, I saw some like, oh, this woman let this hospital rape this child. I'm like, oh, good God, what?
It's terrible.
Like, but that's what people are going to remember more. We don't remember what their positions were on any given case, because they focus so much on the fear mongering, because that's what gets people's attention, and it sucks.
That and sensationalism. One of the ones that I saw driving an issue that somebody raised to try and drive an election was, we shouldn't have cross-dressers teaching kids, or drag queens teaching kids, and the other person was like, what are you talking about? That I've never seen a teacher dressed in drag. And
are they referring maybe to the drag queen that does the children book reading?
Yes,
fairly low?
that's what they were talking about. They were talking about.
I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. I think it's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
anybody that wants to sit down and spend time with children, regardless, I think it's amazing. And as a parent, I'm all for it. So
the fact.
Go ahead.
There were, I've heard a bunch of reports of, like, all over the freaking country, of various like drag story hours at different libraries, things like that, getting invaded by the Proud Boys, guns a-blazing. Like, yeah. There was a video online that I saw the other day of a woman at a town council meeting or something like that, saying like, cool, I've never been sexually assaulted at a drag show, but I have been sexually assaulted twice in a church.
Right.
So which side is grooming kids?
Right. Which where's the danger? Where's the actual danger? Let's suss this out.
Yep.
I think they're afraid that if their children are exposed to it, they might actually make informed decisions in the future and affect the way that the country goes and get rid of all of these extremists. I think that's what they're afraid of.
I mean, it is. And that's the actual argument against critical race theory and everything else. If there's black people around your children as they grow up, well, their imaginations aren't going to be limited by what you grew up with, and they're going to this topic comes up for me every time we're talking about fantasy, like any sort of casting, really. blind casting shouldn't be a word, but it because really casting has always been about whoever fills a role best. But beyond that, the reason people always throw a fit when you talk about like fantasy programs like Lord of the Rings and cultural casting is because black people don't exist in the white supremacist imagination. If a white supremacist are reading a book, they can't picture any of the characters as a black person. I read a book, I picture characters in all kinds of different skin tones. Actually, I don't even really think about it, but
Yeah.
that's what I grew up with. I grew up with people of all kinds of different ethnicities, backgrounds, cultures. So can a halfling be black? Sure. Why the fuck not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless
And
there's something distinctively in their backstory to say no, they can't, which is very few and far between, whether it's, books, any type of media, theater too. The majority of the time, it's just that it's ignorance, I feel like.
Yeah, you're not going to cast Drizzt as a white person. The most famous dark elf in the world who's described as having like midnight black skin. You're not going to cast him as a white person.
My favorite example of that is actually Hermione,
Right.
because like in the books, the only description we really have is that she's got dark brown curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rowling didn't give a description of her skin tone. So like when there was a lot of uproar about the stage version of Cursed Child and they cast Black woman as Hermione, I'm like, oh, that makes complete sense. That pointed out my own perspective of like, yeah, I always, especially because of the freaking movies, but I realized for myself that, yeah, I was guilty of that too. I had seen Hermione as a little white girl because I related to her. But the moment that somebody pointed out and that show pointed out the fact that that was the only description in the books that we see of her, so this is very much within the realm of possibility, I was like, okay, let's expand on that. Let's play with that. I love that idea. Let's do that. So yeah.
I also get regularly annoyed with our authorial intent, but that's a longer conversation. Yeah, I'm a big subscriber to the author is dead as soon as the work starts on the script, but anyway, so yeah, sorry writers, if you wanted to produce something with me, I'm probably going to like be a big thorn in your side.
What workshopping is for.
That's what workshopping is for, yes. All right, we are hitting a little bit over an hour. It's 11:19 Eastern Time. I would like to thank you all for joining me. I would like to thank my audience for joining me. Any last thoughts from y'all? And just to reiterate where and when people can catch your show.
The show opens on Thursday, November 10th. It runs to the 13th at the Lyceum Hall in Burlington, New Jersey. It's at 432 High Street. Tickets are $20. You can get them at bridgeplayertheater.com/tickets, and you can learn more about the show. This is our first live production post-pandemic, so it's huge for us.
Yeah, it's been a blast. And even though we attempted some virtual things, we know that virtual is not always for everyone, but we still wanted to try to not only just keep our name out there, but still produce some really cool stuff. And to do this now live in person with people, it's fun to be back.
Awesome. So yep, go see the Fantasticks in Burlington. Make a trip out there if you're local to Philly. If you're local to Burlington, I expect that you can roll out of bed and get there.
If you're in Burlington, you have no excuse.
No excuse. All right, thanks guys for joining me. I'm gonna take you off screen. I'm gonna talk out the end of the show. Feel free to hang out in the Zoom, and I can catch up with you after. Or if you gotta go, no big deal. But thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely. Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you once again to my audience. I really appreciate you guys joining us. And sorry for the late start. Catch it on replay if you couldn't hang out for the whole show. I always say catch this show on replay. It's available live on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We haven't quite figured out how to get back on Twitch yet, but I'm working on it. You can catch it in replay all of those places. It stays live on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter indefinitely. And so, yeah, you can watch this episode or any other episode and share it with your friends. If you see something that you found interesting, that you found a new perspective, or even if you didn't find a new perspective, you found something that supported something that you have always thought, share it with your friends. Hit that share button on YouTube, and you can even direct them right to a particular moment in the show. If you like what you see, please consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/lightbeefproductions. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. $5 a month gets you a little bit better access, some hidden posts and stuff like that. And we have support levels above and beyond that for folks who would like to support us further. And tune in next week. We will have another show with another set of guests. We don't have them confirmed yet, but I will post when we have those guests confirmed. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.